UK manufacturing, along with so many other sectors, has been hit hard in recent years. Economic uncertainty caused by Brexit and COVID-19 and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has made staying competitive, productive and efficient that bit trickier for businesses. But this industry, by its nature, solves problems, engineers new opportunities and turns adversity into advantage. In the next half an hour, you'll see some of the UK's finest examples of manufacturing in 4 areas of operation. These 4 areas have been identified by us at the manufacturer as the main focus points of the last few years. An ever-growing world trend, rather than just a business trend, is our responsibility for this planet. The world's leading climate scientists warned us back in 2018 we only have 12 years for global warming to be kept to a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius, beyond which even half a degree will have catastrophic climate impacts for millions of people. So, UK businesses were under the spotlight, and as public inspection intensified, manufacturing's historically bad emissions record made for uncomfortable reading. Here, we've picked out examples that make for altogether better reading. Companies that are thriving in sectors that haven't always impressed environmentally. Commercial transport, both in the UK and beyond, the cosmetics industry, and, you'll be glad to hear, the largest industrial manufacturing company in Europe.
Trucks worldwide emit more carbon than the whole aviation and maritime sectors together. Let's look at the trends in electric passenger cars, battery passenger cars. What's happening right now in the UK is amazing. About 1/3 of all new EV passenger cars sold is all electric. Unbelievable, very proud. We should all be proud. But let's understand why. The average passenger car drives 1 to 2 hours a day. The newest EVs have hundreds of miles of range. You have 22 hours opportunity to charge every day. The passenger car, the battery passenger car, is fit for purpose. That's why the growth is so large. Trucks are going to go out for at least 8 hours of work per day. It's a large variance of different things they're going to do in those 8 hours, different trucks for different opportunities. Trucks need to move and work, so they don't really want to depend on, in the middle of the day, maybe leaving their route, looking for a charger, hoping it's not blocked by some random petrol car, sitting around for half an hour for a top-up charge and going back en route. And you don't necessarily, no fleet manager wants to send out trucks that are not guaranteed to complete their day, whatever that day is. In the middle weight classes, often it's back to base or reach its final destination. Batteries alone don't always cover all those scenarios, and that's why we have a focus on dual energy trucks. But as far as trends in the marketplace, trucks is much more nascent than passenger cars.
Carbon doesn't come with a country code on it, right? Carbon is carbon wherever you make it. The thing that people have to think about with the transition to EVs, if we just take what we do now and we transition it to EV, you get an improvement. But actually, we have what we have now because of the constraints of our existing technology. So when you start rethinking the industry, and EVs is a real big one. You know, in Europe, if you switch to an EV, you'll have lower fuel bills, right? But when you buy a car in the UK, your predominant cost is depreciation. That's like, doesn't really matter how much you spend on repairs, and it doesn't really matter how much you spend on fuel. When you go to an operating, an as-a-service model, actually EVs are really well aligned with a great business model because you spend a bit more capital up front, but you get this total cost of reduction of like 70% less fuel and stuff like that over the lifetime of the vehicle. So in commercial as-a-service operations, EVs are just perfect. What they're not very good for is a sales model, because you've got to sell this thing that's more expensive on day one. Like, my customer can't afford it, I lose margin. If I'm running it for the lifetime, well, it's definitely in my interest to spend a bit more up front because I capture the benefit in lifetime. So it's all about changing business models to make sustainability work.
When we look at, our direct operations, energy is a big, it's a big concern. But we've been on renewable energy tariffs since 2008, 2009. We also installed more solar panel capacity. I think everyone that has a roof right now should be prioritizing installing more renewable energy capacity as locally as possible, not just from a sustainability point of view, but also now in terms of economic resilience, right? And making sure that you are less exposed to all the energy fluctuations that we're seeing. But we have an excellent energy manager, and he's been systemically, his name is Jack Gale, so I think all credit to him. But he's been systemically looking at all the opportunities for energy saving, whether it's adding roof insulation, working on the fabric of the building, whether it is electrifying our building. So we have a fully electrified building that was like our trial building. What would a building of the future, I don't want to say future, present, because we need to be doing this now. What does it look like? Full electricity, powered by renewables, with solar on the roof. Even the heating is electric. So we have been trying to drive both a reduction in energy demand through efficiency and other measures, and then how do we increase supply of renewables by tariffs or by producing it ourselves.
We've got the generation side, so how we generate our electricity, and also the consumption side, how we minimise those valuable resources. So on the generation side, we're using a biogas engine to replace some of the natural gas sources we were previously using, and we've connected with a local association in Congleton that were responsible for implementing a hydroelectric product where water flows down a weir, and via an Archimedes screw that's converted to electricity, which is cabled into Congleton. On the consumption side, we've, as you perhaps can see, we've done a lot in terms of LED lighting. We use a lot of air pneumatics in Congleton, so we've had a big program of repairing leaks, which any company will know is a big problem if you're using pneumatics, and some of the simple things like reducing usage of coffee cups and reusable things like that. So we're trying to do both, and we're trying to do it in a sustainable way for the future, because actually the challenge is never ending.
I think all manufacturing in the UK are going to have a big challenge, which is building infrastructure. And especially when it's like landlord locations, there is always this tug of war of like, whose responsibility is it to ensure that we have energy efficient buildings? And we don't have a good alternative for warehouse heating yet. So I think those are challenges that we need to come together as an industry in order to be able to support the growth of the infrastructure needed to do that. That's the kind of changes that everyone here in the UK is also going to have to do in the next few years. Yeah, in the next few years, not in 2040.
The talent shortage and the battle to attract young blood to the manufacturing industry is seen by many companies as the biggest problem of them all. The bridge between the sector and education has never been seen as a secure one, with one side often blaming the other for its instability. But we are seeing examples of good communication between manufacturers and education facilities, with some companies proactively seeking out partnership opportunities for mutual gain. We're also seeing robust action and attention given to apprenticeship programs, bringing talent pipelines closer to home.
Statistic that says that 20% of the UK's engineering manufacturing workforce will retire in the next 10 years. That's a bit of a shocking statistic, and we would hope that obviously we can correct that going forward within this generation.
We need to make people aware as OEMs, as educational facilities, that engineering really is, and manufacturing really is, a valid career path. There is some fantastic roles within manufacturing, and we need to make people more aware of it, of what is in there, and where it is going and how they can get on that journey.
I would hope that industry and education work together to ensure, first of all, that the gaps are identified and to make sure that we can work with those providers of education in the right way to fill those gaps, and make sure that industry and education work together. We as a company ensure that we have a high emphasis of education within our strategies going forward, ensure we've got the right products, we can deliver the right content, and we can help support those academies, those colleges, those schools and universities deliver the education that makes those young people come out of that education really confident.
When I first joined, the apprentice programme was mainly for production operator roles and wasn't really fit for purpose. So we spent a lot of work, a couple of years, enhancing it, making sure that we were looking at the right skills that we needed for the future of the business. And those roles of data analysts, data scientists, software engineers, accounts across all disciplines. You know, we're looking at maintenance engineers, but we're not forgetting the HR functions, the account functions of the business. So it was a hell of a piece of work going in behind the scenes to get that to what it is today.
We're doing okay now again with apprentices. Historically, over the last 20 years, we haven't done as much as we should, and we have seen the problems. There is some fantastic apprentices coming in now. I mean, we're getting some great apprentices coming through because it's being made more aware to people in schools and colleges that it is a viable path.
You know, I think the fundamental starting point is that, you know, we don't have a vision of a completely optimal sort of factory. As a business, we're entrepreneurial and we're innovative, and as we grow, you know, we become bigger, we learn, and we make the occasional mistake. So, you know, where we end up is a situation where the people that are actually involved in that process grow with us, and we give them the opportunity in a particular factory to become the leaders. So, you know, if you look around at all of our 6 sites in Sheffield, the vast majority of those leaders started on the shop floor, you know, some as apprentices. So we grow and we develop.
A lot of businesses may say they have a culture, and it might exist, you know, in some way, shape or form, but here it's almost a feeling that we can put up on the board and say, well, you know, how do we embody that trust and care? Well, here's the set of behaviours that we expect others to adopt, and then when they don't, we are able to challenge at all levels. A big aspect of it is communication as well. It's not just, those values aren't something that we trot out at an annual convention. They are everywhere, all walls on every site kind of thing. And yeah, everybody's just able to challenge and to understand what they look like in practice, which I think is the important thing, really. Seeing it in practice as opposed to it just being values on the wall.
I've worked for Lissy now for 8 years. It has took a bit of a change with this whole side of things since Mark Capel took over. But we really invest in people now. And you'll see from going out on the shop floor, the feeling of well-being out there is a lot better. People feel quite secure, and it's quite comforting for them to know that there is a team like us. I mean, I've had a couple of people come to me before, obviously not stating names or anything, and I've helped them. You know, I could say one that was financial, and you can just give them the numbers to ring, or you know, just little tips on how to be better with money. This lad was quite young, and it did help him. You know, I got a few phone calls off him just outside of work, just saying he's doing better with this, he's doing better with that, and it was quite comforting to me. So it does work.
The unrest of the past few years has also hugely impacted global supply chains. Material shortages, increased energy and shipping costs, and managing Scope 3 carbon emissions are just a few of the supply-related headaches being reported by manufacturers. This is having an impact on many facets of business, and yet our manufacturers are adapting. Where current markets become untenable, new markets are explored. Where components run dry, procurement and sourcing teams find a way, and where lead times increase, build plans are adjusted.
I've been in this operation for 30 years, and the last 3 have just been very unique. So the pandemic obviously brought us, some very, very unique challenges. But actually, the supply chain challenges we have now around us are even more difficult to manage through. So on a daily basis, we plan our operation, our production, and we're seeing supply shortages. Some of that we can see coming, and we can plan around it. Some of it is a surprise, and it's a surprise every day. And it's not necessarily the great big components like a cylinder block or a piston or a connecting rod or a crankshaft that we've been challenged by. It can be a nut and a bolt and a washer and a hose or a tube or a harness connector or a battery terminal. But when you're building a $100,000 component and you're short of a battery terminal, it can be really disruptive and hard to plan.
Firstly, we saw volumes drop through COVID, and then we've had to bounce back since, which has been extremely strong in the industrial sectors for Druck, but aerospace is still on a path to recovery. We have pressure sensors on almost all commercial aircraft in the sky. Secondly, I think electronics has been a huge impactor to the Druck business. Our main components are either electronic or mechanical. We have a world-class sourcing team and a well-connected technology team to our products. So we've been able to find alternative components to use where components have been in short supply, and our sourcing team have moved heaven and earth to find pockets of components that have really driven our ability to keep our lead times competitive. The other part of this is cost. So those solutions do not come free of cost, and that is a challenge to the business. Some of that we've had to pass on to our customers as price impact. Some of it we've had to absorb within the business. So those things are the real impactors from the hugely disrupted supply chains of the last few years.
The demand is a lot bigger than the supply globally for most industries. So we've had to really adapt the way that we do our procurement practices. So traditionally we had lots of Kanban items, and we had call-ins, and we had buffer stocks and safety stocks at suppliers. We can't do that anymore. So an awful lot of new efforts had to go into planning, and also then changing the way that we do. So ordering in advance, years in advance, looking at 2024 now. Not seeing any changes in that supply at the moment, but we've had different allocations before in previous years. So hopefully we're starting to see a little bit of improvement out there in terms of stuff's becoming more available, but they can't tell us when it's going to be available.
And then when you think about the logistics operation, we've developed and evolved a just-in-time supply chain from a global supply base. So we're bringing components from China, India, North America, Europe, UK, all together through to our line to be in the operator's hand, on a metronome to help him produce. That supply chain is just broken. And what was a 5-week lead time for a component from a global supplier is suddenly 10 weeks. But the delivery performance of that logistics process is about 30% of what it should be, 30% on time from a supplier. And so we've got to be really agile in how we adapt and flex our build. And we're able to do that. We're able to adjust our build plans regularly and have to in order to work with what we've got. We build in products and then having to put them back down the line to finish and to adjust just because of those challenges.
We've got over that Brexit hump now. We understand where we were. We did an awful lot of work before Brexit. We've overcome that. We did have some shortages in terms of delivery dates into us, etc., and deliveries being stuck in customs and suppliers not quite understanding the new paperwork and the Incoterms and all of these details. So basically now where we are is that we are just 2 days late, if you see what I mean, or 2 days difference to where we used to be prior to that, which is a huge achievement.
Yep, very challenging, difficult to plan, difficult to admit to, but our ability to flex has got us through that challenge.
Technology is driving the sector to dizzying heights, and fast. Indeed, the pace of technology growth has never been faster than the last 10, even 5 years, undeniably accelerated by the pandemic. Data capture is central to a smooth-running business, and automation and digital systems are key to efficient and productive facilities. Consumer demand for products continues to grow, and customer specifications are becoming grander and more intricate. Digital technologies are making already complex products even more advanced.
The helicopter is an unbelievably complicated product with non-linear problems when it comes to structural dynamics, aerodynamics, control systems. Nearly everything on a helicopter is more difficult than it would be on any other product. We have done a lot of work in the digital space for a number of years now. We have extremely good capability when it comes to our simulation facility. We've got a world-class capability for simulating the behaviour of rotorcraft.
The cornerstone for us and why we've been in business for 50 years is our ability to make products efficiently and generate productivity. As you move into products which are more complex to manufacture, what has become clear for us is that we needed to get a lot better at making our data connected right from the IT world, if you like, through to the shop floor. So we spent a lot of time in developing seamless data where our systems are connected, and then what we've been able to do is start to introduce automation on this platform of seamless data where we can continue to identify productivity opportunities.
Compared to kind of doing the stock taking element with humans, I think obviously the reliability and accuracy of the data, it's going to be always much better, because when you do it with a digital device, it just kind of gets recorded exactly how it is on the pallet. So for example, quite a few of our customers actually have to write down, for example, barcode information or airway bills that come with the goods. So when you write things down, you might make mistakes, right? So from an accuracy perspective, digitizing that element is going to be always a step forward. Also getting the data much more frequently and in different volumes. So if you can imagine somebody going location by location in a warehouse, scanning that thing with a handheld scanner, writing it down on paper. With a robot, you can literally kind of get that information in a split second across an entire rack. So automatically it's just more data, which means more accuracy, and kind of getting that more frequently means better inventory processes.
Really exciting time for us here at Unix, because we're going through such a big level of expansion, both in terms of the volume of sales that we're doing, but also the technology that we're really harnessing here. Everything from your day-to-day traffic management all the way through to really cool AI technology that we're getting out there. And what that means for us here in manufacturing is we've got to make those products for the team. So we're looking at huge amounts of innovation to keep ourselves on the cutting edge. It falls into two real categories for us, really. We've got the agile element, so it's what are we doing day to day to keep ourselves delivering for tomorrow, but also we've got that innovation element. So what technology can we bring in that makes our customers see that we're the best to manufacture that product?
The power of the robot is about, I think, 14 to 18 hours, just depending a little bit on how much they have to travel. They are obviously fantastic in terms of taking care of themselves. When they do go low on battery, they'll find their way to the docks, get charged. Obviously, when they're ready to go again, they'll go out. So from that perspective, it's all, again, autonomously maintained. When it comes to any issues with the robots, like we have a lot of sensors and data, sensors that collect data from the robots' performances every single moment when they run. So if anything goes wrong or anything is not into the parameters, I will get notified almost instantly. So most of the times it's just something we can solve from a software perspective, from remotely in a couple of minutes. Or if we actually have to come in and do an inspection, we can do that, very, very quickly, depending on where the customer is.
There is more that we can do, though. At the moment, we've got a top-level flight simulation, but with levels of fidelity that we would like to see spreading back down into all of the subsystems, so that we've got a true model-based systems engineering basis for some of our future developments. We have, though, recently won the Divisional Award for Innovation, Process Innovation, when it comes to the work we've done simulating the behaviour of our aircraft in the ship airwake environment. looking at how easy it is to land rotorcraft on ship's decks and so on. So that's encouraging, but we've got more to do.
From a factory perspective, over the next 10-20 years, we're going to see huge amounts of automation brought into the factory. We're looking at real-life robotics at the moment alongside our software robotics, but that brings a lot of technology along with it about how can we understand the data of what we're producing. So making sure our quality's up to scratch, making sure the products are meeting the demands of the customer. A really good example of that is some low-cost AOI we're looking at the moment, so automatic optical inspection, hugely expensive process, and at the moment we put every single product through that process. So we're looking at really cool innovative solutions where we can take that board and inspect it in other ways.
What's, I think, really important to understand though is we're not yet in a world where we can look at full automation of all of our products and processes. So the environment that we're in Congleton, and I see for many manufacturers, is working out the best mix of people and automation and how that works together collaboratively.
Many industries have been affected by the turmoil of the last few years, but the manufacturing sector has felt the brunt of it. But challenge has bore progress. Digital advancements, more acute environmental awareness, a greater focus on the well-being of people, and a desire to, where possible, manufacture closer to home to mitigate supply issues. Will we find ourselves looking back on this time and reflecting that it truly was a period of enlightenment for the industry? Whatever the case, we eagerly look to the future of this sector with anticipation of the innovations and advancements still to come.